This episode brought to you by trees. Okay, so my basic thought. The basic gist is when it comes to photography, life, and everything in between, know that you're this hero in this game of life. So what do I mean by that? Is that like we're taught in society, and it's actually funny too, because a lot of people criticize Americans. Oh, y'all so self-centered, individualistic, blah blah. Truth be told, we're actually really not. Is that like you're allowed to be individualistic and self-centered in a consumerist capitalist way, but in terms of a true personality thing, you're actually not, right? So I could buy, a Maserati and be like, yo, I'm so unique and different, look at my personality, but it's like, you gotta buy it. But you yourself, you're not allowed to, take your top off and take off your shirt, even though you're allowed to do that in like a 911 Porsche. But anyways, so if you consider yourself the hero in this game of life, that means perhaps we should become more self-centered, more self-focused, and like not feel like we always need to quote other people or to be a slave of other people's opinions. Maybe, yeah, to be insanely vain, insanely self-centered could actually be the most quote-unquote selfless thing you could do in life, because when you're sharing your opinion, you're not really treading on nobody's toes. You're like, yo, this is just my opinion, because if you're not talking about science or mathematics or physics, essentially anything you say in terms of art, aesthetics, philosophy is all subjective. Even when it comes to morality and ethics, I'm sorry utilitarians, but there's no ultimate objective ethical truth. Even our friend Immanuel Kant, he was essentially a low-key, I think he was like a Scottish Puritan. So even if we think about Kant's morals and ethics, he essentially comes from like a Puritan perspective, so we can't really trust Kant either. Essentially, the biggest thing is, yeah, just to share your thoughts and be more self-centered and more self-focused. Because when you're more self-centered and more self-focused, I think you're just more honest. You don't really need to use other people, because like everyone's always like, oh yo, like I don't like you when you do X, Y, and Z because you're taking advantage of other people. But certainly if you're in a position where you just focus on yourself, you don't gotta take advantage of nobody else, because you're just focusing on yourself. Like even everything I do on my blog and my vlog and stuff like that is like, I'll blog myself. I'm not waiting on nobody else. When I make vlogs and stuff like that, I don't really need to record nobody else. I just record myself. And whenever I share my thoughts, I'm not a slave to anybody else. I'm a free person, I'm a free man. And, fortunately for me living in America, I do have freedom of thought and expression. And, I could say more or less anything I want, and I'm not gonna have some SS knocking at my door telling me to see them for a moment. But anyways, so I think us as Americans, we take our freedom of speech and freedom of expression for granted. And I don't think we do that because we're somehow bad people. The problem is just like, you don't really know how much you appreciate something until you leave it. Because, after you leave the States, I've lived in other countries and been to other countries. Yeah, and there's no freedom of speech. I mean, it's like, yo, you're gonna get censored, you're gonna get blacklisted, you're going to have, somebody knocking on your door and putting you away for a long time without, any rights. So I would say, us fellow Americans, start your own self-hosted website blog. Don't use Squarespace, don't use WordPress.com, don't use all these other things. Sign up on Bluehost.com or 101.com, install WordPress.org. And even when it comes to YouTube, I mean, sooner or later, YouTube's gonna censor you one way or another. Do a self-hosted video option. I know the Videopress.com from WordPress.com allows, paid video hosting. That's what I currently use. And so essentially, if you don't pay for your services, you're not 100% free. And like, don't trust social media and stuff like that. So for me, the ultimate happiness is having freedom of movement, having freedom of activity. How's it going? Having the freedom to just kind of share your own thoughts and not really worry about getting censored and stuff like that. So as long as you could freely express yourself, kind of consider yourself happy. And so what are some things you could start doing? I mean, consider that you're an artist, you're an entrepreneur, think freely, think for yourself. Don't let other people bully you around, because I think the biggest problem in life is when you're too afraid to share your own opinion, because either you're raised that way, or you just kind of get afraid of being wrong or getting in trouble. But know that if it's all just your opinion is irrefutable. So once again, as long as you're not waxing poetic about physics and mathematics, there is no ultimate laws or truth. And yeah, I know for myself at least, the more I share my thoughts and my opinions, my artwork and stuff like that, I'm happier, I'm more lively, I'm more empowered and so forth. So yeah, in this game of life, know that you're the hero and you could do no wrong.